Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Female Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Krista Gurka, and I am so excited for this episode because besides the fact that it is a guest episode with a returning guest, we have a huge, exciting announcement that if you've been following me on Instagram, you saw, but I am so excited to announce that Fit Biz Strategies, which is the name of my company, whether you know that's it or just know me by Krista Gurka, is going to be collaborating with Felicia Alexander, who is the co-founder of BoxUnion. And she's going to talk all about her history and how we're going to be working together. And I just couldn't be happier to be publicly announcing this after we were chatting about it for several weeks. And so, Felicia, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today. And please just let me have this disclaimer. If you're watching us on YouTube,
Oh,
I was so graceful when I was hiking this weekend, the Flatirons in Boulder. My foot got stuck and I landed on my nose. This is not a new skincare treatment, but I'll let you know how this nose resurfacing pans out. In the meantime, don't mind the beef jerky. It is what it is.
it
And I'm
is.
lucky that this is all it is.
I love that this is not a new skincare line. But now you never know. Maybe you're onto something. And
I know.
then you never know. You could brand a whole new product. Well,
Exactly.
you still look beautiful. But for
Oh,
those
thanks.
watching on poor YouTube, yes, poor Felicia had a little bit of a fall this weekend. So, Felicia, can you give the people who don't know you your history from Box Union to title, and even before that, if you're so inclined?
Yeah. So I co-founded Box Union, which is a group fitness boxing concept based in Los Angeles. We opened the doors of our first location in 2017. Los Angeles was definitely not short on fitness studios at the time. Boxing for fitness was not a new concept. There were plenty of boxing gyms that offered group classes, but my business partner and I thought that there was a real opportunity to make boxing accessible and introduce boxing to people who would have never contemplated putting on gloves before. And we did this through creating a really fun experience. It was a dark room, everyone had their own individual heavy bag, and everything we do in that room is done to the beat of the music. So we wanted to take something that's traditionally very individual and make it community by having everyone move together in unison to the beat of the music. I did not come from the fitness world, so I know so many people in your ecosystem are practitioners, instructors, but I came from a corporate background. I have always been deeply obsessed with fitness. I grew up playing competitive soccer. I spent a disproportionate amount of my student loans to belong to a really nice high-end health club because that was important to me. But I worked in sales and marketing for over 20 years. I worked for really large corporations. I worked for Sun Microsystems, which basically created the servers that powered the internet, doesn't exist anymore. I worked for Mattel doing Barbie marketing. I worked for Sony Corporation of America. And I got involved in boutique fitness in 2005. I remember being at a restaurant and I saw a little free class card. So I think those still work, like flyering in local businesses is still a great way to attract new eyeballs. And it was for a place called Burn 60. Now, Barry's Boot Camp existed in LA, but it was not geographically desirable for where I lived. So Burn was very similar to Burn 60 was very similar to Barry's. And I became obsessed. It was so much fun to start my mornings off at this studio, to really get to know the same group of people, to have this curated workout. And while the workout was amazing, I think it was the community and that camaraderie that kept me coming back. And I would say to myself, and I would go home, my husband, and I'd be like, why am I not doing something like that. And I would get groups of friends and bring them in. And before you knew it, I felt like I was moonlighting for Burn 60. And I was also getting really annoyed because it was getting so popular, which is a good thing. I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but it made getting my classes really hard. And I was like, why isn't there an easier way to do this? My husband was always the serial entrepreneur. I had the corporate steady paycheck, the check that came every 2 weeks, the health benefits. He was high risk, high reward, and he saw my complaints as a opportunity to dig in. We had befriended the owner of Burn. He got access to her mind body credentials, and lo and behold, he built a mobile app for clients of Burn to be able to book and later buy classes using. The technology he built ended up becoming owned was purchased by MindBody, and it was there today. If you have a branded mobile app and MindBody is your provider, that's technology that my husband built. So I think that was the first foray into me actually thinking about leaving the corporate world and going and doing something entrepreneurial. And I had been taking fitness classes everywhere and thought that there was really an opportunity around boxing. I had a business partner who was a dear friend's husband. He was a former investment banker. He's very much a numbers guy. And he too was really excited about the opportunity around boxing because while it existed, we didn't feel like there was something that was bringing in a net new audience and that the participation skewed more male. It didn't look like what if you went into a hot eight or a core power or a soul cycle or a barriers class, it didn't mimic that same audience. So we opened our first location in Santa Monica in April 2017. People thought we were absolutely crazy. Neither of us taught classes, but we had taken enough classes. We found the right instructors, which that was a whole ordeal to imagine going and talking to people and telling them, I have this idea for this thing. Would you like to see a drawing of what it looks like? Oh no, I don't teach classes, but we've hung up some bags in my business partner's garage. So why don't you come and workshop with us there? And we created this concept that was met with really good reception. And we were super excited because we didn't know anything going into this business other than being avid consumers. I think we made every mistake possible, like this idea of running a pre-sale. We're like, we have it at best. We didn't really have a plan about when to start marketing, like what automation looked like. I think we were more of the mindset of if we build it, they'll eventually come,
Come.
not let's really create awareness, get our name out there, have something compelling to offer, have systems in place. And fast forward, the first one we were able to make work really well. I spent an inordinate amount of time inside the studio doing everything but teach the classes. We then opened a second location. And I think, if anything, that just magnified that we didn't have the most solid foundation for the first location. We were really lucky in that we had great people who were super passionate about what we were building and wanted to be along for the ride. But I think a lot of what we created existed in our heads. And I think that for a long time, I was really comfortable with being the one who was like, I can just wake up earlier, I can stay up later, I can get this done, versus thinking about what were the things we were doing over and over again and how could we document them and how could we turn them into actually systems and processes. And we ended up investing in a learning management system shortly thereafter. I don't know that initially we really knew how to use it, but we knew that we needed a place to serve as a repository for the SOPs and the constant onboarding and training, especially of front of house staff. We realized that we needed a sales process because we had a lot of people coming in. We were really lucky. We didn't do any digital advertising for, I don't know, the first at least 18 months, but we really weren't doing a good job of getting them to come back for a second time. Our first offer was like a 3 class pack. And what we were realizing that was taking people who weren't coming back, and then we didn't have the opportunity to really sell and convert them. So, anyhow, through BoxUnion, I learned a tremendous amount of, and a lot of the learning came from the flagrant mistakes that
Mhm.
we made in thinking we were doing the right thing and learning, no, actually, there was a better or different way to do something. So when the pandemic happened, we were just about to open our third location. And really, we had thought we were going to open a dozen box unions. We had been out scouting locations in Austin, Dallas, Denver, San Francisco. And we had found that finding real estate was really hard. It was really expensive to build these because we were hanging 4,200 pound bags. We were playing loud music, and there was a lot of sound and noise vibration that we had to deal with. So imagine the cost of building a studio and then add to that, because we had to basically create this acoustically sound structure. So it was a box within a box to help deal with all of the noise and the vibration that 40 people hitting a bag or doing jumping jacks at the same time would generate. During the pandemic, we went online. We were like, wow, we're the best thing ever. Now, all these people from all over the world know who we are. But what happened that we never anticipated was we got a call from Title Boxing Club. And Title Boxing Club, for those of you who aren't familiar, has been around since 2008. It was probably the first group boxing fitness concept. And they started franchising in 2010. And when they called, they were testing the waters to see if we were potentially available for sale. They thought maybe during COVID, there would be a lot of these mom and pops that were struggling that they could buy for relatively no amount of money and then increase the footprint of the title system. My business partner, being the investment banker and the deal guy that he was, uncovered that really their motivation was to get out of the business and that they had been looking to sell the franchise business, had been working with a private equity firm, thought they had a deal, and then the pandemic struck. So he said, you can buy us, but I don't think you can afford us. And if anything, we should buy you. They laughed. He told me, I thought for sure maybe there was a strain of COVID that made one delusional because I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? But he had this vision and he was very much, no, I think this is great. I think we understand this business. We could bring a lot of fresh, new ideas into a brand that is already really strong, that has scale. We did as much diligence as you can without feeling comfortable getting on the road and meeting franchisees in person. We hired people to help us survey. And I think one of the things that you realize when you do a survey is you either get your biggest fans or your biggest critics that comment and give you feedback. So to make a long story short, we purchased Title Boxing Club. The deal went through at the 11th hour on December 31st of 2020. And we became franchisors overnight, and we inherited a system that had over 100 locations operating in 28 states. And it was like drinking from a fire
Fire
hose.
hose.
Yeah. The franchisees were really skeptical. One, what did we know about franchising? The answer was nothing. And we were really clear about that. The second is they really felt like their brand was like true, authentic boxing, and BoxUnion was not that in their eyes. And it became a lesson in listening. It became a lesson
Mhm.
in how do you build trust? How do you show and demonstrate accountability and how do you find common ground? Because the one thing we weren't going to do was one of our core values was challenge the status quo. And I think before we challenged anything, we had to really spend time going out and learning what it was we had purchased. So that first year, I don't think I saw my husband or my son very much. My business partner and some of our key team members were on the road most of the year. We visited at least, I went to at least 40 different clubs. And through that process, I think what we learned was that everybody in this business has same variation of the exact same issues.
Mhm.
This is a really hard business. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but it's not a complicated business. There's only a couple of levers that
Yeah.
can be manipulated. And I think what I've learned, what I know you know, is that oftentimes it's a lack of having a foundation that causes everything to crumble. So,
Yeah.
not having clear mission, vision, values that you can then hire against, that you can train against. It's thinking that training is a one time event and not an ongoing process. It's not being able to have difficult conversations because you're worried about hurting someone's feelings or somebody quitting. I think if I've learned anything, it's that everything is figure outable.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you're absolutely right. I do think having been in the room with you and other 8 and even 9-figure business owners at times, the problems are all the same. They're just at scale when you have 100 employees or 100 people that report to you or in a franchise model. There's just different levers, but the problems are the same, right? Hiring, onboarding, people issues, sales and marketing, conversion. It's all relatively the same thing. And I think you're absolutely right in that for most businesses, especially the smaller independent studios, but for bigger businesses as well, it's the lack of foundation because so many of us got into the business because we were the practitioner, or even in your case you saw a need in the market and you were like, I would like to fill it. And so we do it and we're building the plane as we're flying it, and it's then we're trying to open another location, which is putting a second floor on, and the foundation is crumbling and everything is sinking down. And for you as well, you actually have a degree in business, having an MBA. And I would love to ask you, you've talked about this, I think, when you came to the summit a couple years ago, the difference in learning business in a classroom and then learning business experientially in the real world. And how do you think those two things, one, how do you think the MBA prepared you? And how do you think it was experience that you needed? The two didn't always go hand in hand.
Yeah. So, first and foremost, it was early in my career at Sun Microsystems when I was the youngest by 15 to 20 years, and all of my bosses and mentors had MBAs. And they told me two things. They told me that one, I had to work in sales, and I thought sales sounded like such a dirty profession. And I was like, I'm going to do marketing, I'm not going to do sales. And they're like, no, you're going to do sales. And then the MBA was almost like a tick mark so that nobody could say you're not qualified because
Hmm.
you don't have an MBA. Or let's
Hmm.
say I wanted to have kids and step out of the workforce. Would having that allow me to transition back in more easily? I'm going to be totally honest. I always knew I was going to stay in sales or marketing. So I didn't take 2 years off and go to school full time. I did a full MBA program that was done over 3 years instead of 2 years, and I continued to work while I was doing it. If anything, I think it made me realize where my strengths and my interests lie. So I went in naively being like, oh, I'm going to get really good at finance and I'm going to understand accounting. And I think a lot of times I grinned, I bared it, I studied, I got through it, but I didn't really lean in and
Mhm.
learn. So when I hear you say you don't have an MBA, you have more of a business acumen than 99% of people that I know. And your ability to understand an income statement, a balance sheet, rattle off and do all these formulas in your head, do all the mental math that you can do, I think is so much more valuable than going and being in a classroom. I think for me, an MBA was the degree, it was the check mark, it was a lot of incremental student debt, and it was reaffirming where my passion lies. So
Yeah.
I'm of the mindset that there is no bigger, better experience than actually being in a business. That said, I think an MBA can be wildly valuable, especially if you've been an engineer and you really want to pivot careers. I think there's certain times where it might make a lot of sense, or certain professions. But I think what you've created is a business mentorship program. And I think what you're teaching people is so unbelievably valuable because it's actually grounded and rooted in what it means to operate a
Yeah.
wall Pilates PT wellness business.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I am of the belief that anybody can learn anything, and we will all gravitate towards the things that also, I think, our innate ability makes us good at. Even as a physical therapist, I think my innate ability of, because which is I don't, as an introvert at heart, I don't love people in my personal space. People touching me is a weird thing. And so I chose that profession. But what I do love is the analytical part of it. I look at a patient who has back pain and I'm like, where's the puzzle? Like, how does their hip related to their back pain, or their left foot related to their right shoulder? And I look at business the same way. So I'm like,
Mhm.
this is a puzzle that is solvable, right? We just have to put piece by piece together. And I do believe that women can learn these skills, especially nowadays. Like when I started my business in 2007, there wasn't mentorship programs like this available. And I didn't see, also social media wasn't around. I didn't see, and I say see in air quotes, I didn't see anyone that looked like me where I was going. And by me, I mean a female that did not have an MBA, that was not from corporate background, that was like the primary parent at home. I wasn't in that world. And I was like, you know what? But I can learn. And now there's so much access to information, and you can learn the different skills that you're really passionate about. And so one of the things with partnering with you and starting to collaborate was, one, your acumen in terms of business itself, right? Understanding a spreadsheet, understanding the operations of a business, because there's the spreadsheet and what the spreadsheet says, and then there's the reality of what it looks like in real life, right? Like a investment banker or somebody telling you need to keep your payroll under 35% is black and white. But then the
Yeah.
real life of, okay, but if I keep it at 35% or 30%, I'm going to turn over every 6 months and that's going to cost us more money, right? So there's
Yeah.
both of that. And also your interest in sales and marketing, which is like your background. And I think that you love testing out different modalities and visiting studios and talking to owners, and again being an example of what is available to women in this industry. And I think that's my biggest passion with starting this mentorship program, is one, showing women you can learn these skills. You can learn how to read an income statement. You don't have to be a professional at it, but you can learn how to read it. And two, by putting myself in the room with other people like you and people like Carrie Sadowitz of Fitting Room and New York Sports Club and Amanda Freeman of SLT, it just opened my eyes to what was available to me. And I want to create those environments for the women that are in my mentorship group because you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
right? And so showing them and just saying, if you want this, it this is the pathway to get it. It is available to you should you want it. That doesn't mean everyone wants to or should grow to a seven-figure multi-location business. It just means that everyone can have a sustainable, profitable business, right? And that's, I just am excited about the opportunity to bring you in to the Fit Biz Strategies family because I think you come with a plethora of information. And so tell us a little bit about what you did over the last kind of like the precipice of what brought you into being like coming on board and like discussing the possibility of this kind of strategic partnership with Fit Biz Strategies. So what's gone on basically 2025 into 2026?
Yeah, in terms of role, I like to say that I've been like the chief of stuff. LinkedIn might say chief revenue officer, but I think it's chief of stuff. And I was really clear that in 2025, June of 2025, I met you in 2020, and you knew I had this plan. I said, when my son graduates high school, I am selling my house. I'm stepping down at the day to day of the business, no matter what that looks like. And my husband and I are going to spend time traveling the world. And I think everybody thought, wow, that's cool. You can do that. Or she's crazy. Or let's see what she actually does.
I
And
didn't
January of
actually know what you meant. I was like, really? No, she's not going to do that. She just means she's going to take a month off. That's really what I thought. You were just going to take a month off. And when it got closer and you're like, no, this is the plan. I'm not kidding. I've told you this before. I was like, wait, you can do that? Like, you're the owner of a, like, you could just be like, I'm out. I'm going to travel. I was like, I didn't even know that was an option. It was a pretty eye-opening thought. Why would I not think that's an option? I have no idea. But in my head, I was like, that's not doable. I don't know why. It's pretty amazing.
So I'm glad. So part of that was like, how did I fire myself? And how did I prepare for what that looked like? Because again, I co-founded a business. We acquired a business. There, at one point in time, we had over 200 employees. I was running people operations. At the end of the day, like I care deeply about the community. I care about the team that we employ, and I care about the business partner that I started this with. So making sure that one, there was an ample runway of, hey, I'm going to be exiting at this time frame, and then two, figuring out like what does that mean. And in some cases it meant really good things because it meant like I was in the way of other people being able to take on bigger roles within the organization. I was in the way because there were certain things that I was doing that I had been doing for a long time that weren't necessarily the best
Mm.
way, the rightest way, the smartest way to do things. I'm never going to claim to be the smartest person in the room. And I think what I love so much about you and why I connected with you so deeply was just this like constantly learning, constantly improving, constantly wanting to grow and optimize yourself. I feel so lucky to be able to be at this part of my life. So I exited the business. Our home burned in January of 2025, which made the logistics of leaving and selling a house like I didn't have to do that process because there was just a pile of dirt to sell. And we have been in 21 countries since last June. We have gone to studios in most of these countries. I have taken classes where I don't know a thing that they're saying, and I'm just playing follow the leader. That's why I think we were on one of your mastermind calls, and someone's when we do training, we have our staff watch a recording of themselves, and we have them watch a full recording where their voice and movement, the sound is on, they can see what they're doing. Then we have the screen turned away and they can only hear how they're instructing. And then we have the visual where they can't, and it really makes different because if you can't speak the language, you're really relying on somebody in front of you or the
Yep.
teacher to show you what it is you're doing. And where I can, I always connect with the owners of those studios because I'm a people person. I love talking to anybody and everyone. So whereas you lean very introverted, I'm like, call me on the phone, call me anytime. You're like, text me. And that's the good yin and yang. And I'm just so excited because I feel like the first time I attended one of your summits in December of 2022, I was blown away with the workbooks that you had prepared, the speakers that you had. I know you had Danielle from Kickstart Accounting there, and just the actual hands on work. This wasn't some theoretical, we're going to talk. And then you're going to leave and forget everything. But there was not only the talking piece, but then there was the deep diving, knew so many of these people, you knew their businesses so intimately and that we're really doing things to help them become better operators and learn how to run their businesses. So I had told you for years, like Krista, a few of us have said this. We're going to come work for you because we think what you've built is so impressive. And one of the things I'm most excited about is one to have the conversation with more women who are in similar positions, who are going through the same sort of challenges, because I think it can be really lonely. And I think
Totally.
you often think, what did I do? Or am
Yep.
I the only one? I talked to a new studio owner who is a corporate attorney, and she's, I can't believe it. I've been open 6 weeks and I've already had to fire 4 people. How could I have gotten this so unbelievably wrong? Like, where was my misstep? And, you know, she didn't get anything wrong. We can all relate to
It's all
being in that
reality.
same situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyhow, I'm just excited to be able to take the global perspective, take the time away from being day to day in my business, taking the learnings, both the what went well and what didn't go so well, and be able
Yeah.
to work with your community. And because I love sales so much, to let other people who don't know about the Female Empowered podcast, who don't know about Krista Gurka, who don't know about Fit Biz Strategies, know that this exists.
Yeah. You're absolutely right that when I go to other studios, I'm like, don't anybody know that I'm an owner? I'm just totally the opposite. I'm such a put my hat on, go in, go out. And it's not that I don't want to talk to people about it. It's sometimes I just like my exercise just to be like my safe space, which is why when we discussed and I was like, oh my gosh, you would really want to do this with me. I was like, this is the best thing in the world because it's also what you love to do. It's innate. You're going to do it no matter what. And I always tell people that the way that you say the tangible things, like that to me is my jam. I been to so many conferences and summits and all this stuff, and it's like theory. And I'm like, I want to ask you specifically about me. This is my business, and I need to
Mhm.
know how to understand this. So when I created this type of mentorship, I was just like, I want to give people actionable, tangible things that they can then take and implement right away in a way that they understand for them. And so for me, I can be on a coaching call with someone for 90 minutes because I'm like, this is what they need. I'll give them what they need. Everyone has a different timeline and how much bandwidth they can do it. Whereas you're like, you love interacting with owners and talking with them about their experience. And I was like, oh my gosh, this could be like a marriage match made in heaven. So I am very excited. So let's talk a little bit about what you are going to bring to Fit Biz Strategies. So you did say Felicia's going to, head up a lot of the new client acquisition because one, she does love to travel and she's always in new places. And she's going to be out there talking to new business owners. And she already has and she's also, you started in California, now you're in Denver. So like we've got the East Coast, West Coast thing. And so tell us a little bit about what I'd love to hear your thoughts too on when you go into a studio and you're a client, some of the things that we've even talked about that are easy and okay, I'm going to say easy fixes because they are fixable, but sometimes we don't even notice how easy they are to fix. Some things like when we talk about control the controllables, right? What are some things in studios that making 2 or 3 adjustments could really move the needle in their business?
Yes. So, one, make sure you have a first timer protocol. You're obviously spending money to get people in the door, or if somebody's finding you organically, that is such a gift that you've been given. Make them feel welcome. Make
Mhm.
them know that you know it's their first time there. Have the instructor greet them by name, form some sort of connection, if at all possible. And you, let's say, are the one teaching the class and you've got regulars in the class, take the time to introduce the first timer to one person in the class and let them know it's their first time there. Check in on them, make them feel seen. There is nothing that makes me crazier than when I get this really great pre class communication from a studio about how they're so excited to have me. And then I show up and nobody talks to me. And then the text after the fact is, "We loved having you in class." Really? Did you even know I was in class? Because nobody acknowledged me. I get a little heated on that. So I don't know if it's a
But those are
midlife
so
hot flash or whatever, but yes,
it's
like
true
that
though.
makes
It's
my
the
blood
little
boil.
things. Yeah. It's a disconnect, right?
Yeah.
It's like you have all these automated systems obviously that are in place, which is great that you did that. But then in the reality is you walk in, you're like, "Wait, I thought there was going to be some more." It seems personable and then you lose them and then the post automation feels fake.
Yeah. 100%. That's something that I definitely notice. I also notice if you are employing dedicated front desk, if they're on their phone or if they're reading a book while the class is taking place. We know that rent and labor are our two biggest expenses. And I think now more than ever, studios are having to question, can I afford to keep a dedicated front desk person? So if somebody is there and you're paying for an extra person, I have no doubt that there are things that they could be doing, even if it's a loud environment and they can't be making calls, they could be sending text follow-ups, they could be sending emails, they could be pulling what's happening in the next class, they could be creating a hot list, they could be re-merchandising the retail. There's a lot of things. I would focus on the money activities first versus the beautifying
Mhm.
activities second, but that is something that I notice. And then I think the last thing is I kind of notice, what is the culture like inside the studio? Do people seem to know each other, or does everybody get into the class, go into their own spot, and there's not a lot of
Uh,
chattering amongst people? And I think why that is important is because you can get a great workout anywhere or a lot of places. And in many cases, you don't even have to pay for a solid workout. And I do think the one thing that can't be underestimated is that feeling of belonging and that connection. The coolest things that happened at BoxUnion were when two women who were 7 a.m. regulars who didn't know each other, when one asked the other to be in her wedding party. And like prior to that experience,
wow.
like they didn't even know each other. And I think people, there's a loneliness epidemic. We're tied to our phones. We're not interacting as much face to face. So I think having that environment where there is a community where people are talking, where they know each other, where they're excited to see each other. And I think that is something that the instructor and honestly, like the culture of the
Mhm.
studio helps to create.
That's so true. I definitely think our community is what helped pulled us through COVID for sure. Because with so many options nowadays, having that community aspect where they're like, oh, but I go to have breakfast with my friends after a Pilates class, right? Or I walk with my friends to the studio, or we go on a Saturday and then we go have lunch afterwards. That part of community is in it. And I do think it's something that the small studios have an opportunity to build over the large multi-location studios for sure.
Totally.
So,
And to your point, I know that you're a big fan of having fewer people teaching more classes. And I completely agree with that as well, because it's easier for those relationships to form. It's easier to hold people accountable. It's easier for your clients to come into more routine and consistency when they know who it is, what they're going to get, and be able to have that their expectations met without having that wild card of, oh, I wonder what this will be like.
yeah, it's also much easier to manage less people. It really
100%.
is. It really
Yes.
is. So, let's talk a little bit about what you're going to do with FitBiz. So, you do some new lead generation, right? Sales,
Yep.
outreach. How else are you going to be an asset besides just being an overall amazing human being?
Okay. Well, I'm not going to do any of the Google ads. That is all of Krista. But if anyone wants to talk about people, processes, onboarding, coaching, having difficult conversations, so any of the people HR side of things, happy to talk in that area. Sales, how do you get your team to do the dirty job of selling? Which at the end of the day, if you got into this business, you might not have known it, but what you really did was you created a sales organization.
Yeah,
So let's embrace it. Let's realize that we're always selling, and let's make it fun, because people who are coming to you, they're raising their hand and they want
yeah,
your guidance.
for
There's a
sure.
problem that needs to be solved, and you get to be that problem solver. Talking about retention and different
Hmm.
ways to do it, I love talking about lead gen. But before I go into diving into your lead gen, we're going to look at your data, because oftentimes people have more than enough leads. It's that they're not getting those leads in the door. And
Yeah.
so we're going to look and figure out where are the gaps and how are we going to plug those holes before we go and find more leads. We can talk about having hard conversations. I think that's in the people standpoint, but I know so often I'm worried if I talk to them about this, they're going to quit, or I know this person is not behaving in a way that aligns with our core values, but they're our number one instructor, and there's a cost to
For
all of
sure.
that.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about pre-sales, we're going to talk about growth, expansion. We're going to talk about almost all of the things. And anything
Yes.
I don't know, Crystal will talk to you about.
I think it's going to be a great collaboration in terms of also the way that you were able to experience it on a more macro, and also the experience in an acquisition, because there are businesses that we're mentoring right now that, and I really do believe that everyone should build their business as if they could sell it, whether they think that's an opportunity or not. Because if God forbid something were to happen and you have to get out for some reason, you want to be able to be like, this is ready to go. I'm at the starting line already, versus needing 18 months to prep your business for sale. And so your experience with that, I think, is being in the rooms with investment bankers speaking the language. That's, by the way, in a lot of deals, 50% is just understanding the lingo so that you can be like, no, that is not what I want to do. Or I'm understanding. And so you don't feel like you're getting bamboozled. So Felicia has been sitting on some of my coaching calls and sitting on the sales calls. She's diving into all the Fit Biz framework. She is going to be part of the next launch of our accelerator, our Fit Biz accelerator, which at the time of this recording, enrollment will open June of 2026, and the cohort will actually begin in August because I believe that July should be a time of let's relax, enjoy your children, enjoy the summer, take a vacation. I myself will be in Europe, as will Felicia for a little bit. So, but that is something we're really excited about. We're going to be releasing details very soon. And after I sold the business, I knew this was what I wanted to lean into, but it was getting also to a point that I also didn't want to overburden myself in terms of taking on more than I could, putting myself right back into that feast or famine at all cost mentality. And so now having another mentor as part of our team is really going to help us be able to help more women in boutique fitness, wellness, and healthcare, and just open up the doors and open up the eyes and of these women of what is available, what they can accomplish, and give them really tangible insight into how to make that happen at a way that I think is affordable from wherever you are in your business, from our community that's $99 a month to our let's get ready to sell your business in the next 12 to 24 months, $2,000 a month program. So I could not be more excited to have Felicia join this community. And do you have any parting words, Felicia?
No, that, yes, I always have words that, I'm really excited. I think that what you've built is amazing. I think there's such real power in networks and peer learning. I'm so surprised with the value, even at the community level of $99 a month. I think there's a lot of things that add up in our lives to more than that. And the fact that you've got these two calls, and I've been on them, where people come on the call with real world issues that they're dealing with. And not only do they leave the call with some tangible solutions, but they also leave with the knowledge that there's other people in the community that they can connect with at any point in time for other perspectives. So it's like that network effect of
For
people
sure.
helping people. So I'm
Yeah,
very excited.
I know. Yeah, you're right. It is lonely at the top a lot of times, and there's not a lot of people we can talk to about it that really understand what we're going through, right? And so to have a community of women, by women, for women, because we think a little differently than men. I know you and I both have incredibly supportive partners. It's just a little different. And so
Yeah.
having a community that speaks directly to women, and it's really over 72% of this industry are females. And I'm so excited about it. So if you're listening to this podcast and you have a Pilates studio, physical therapy practice, yoga, bar, Legree, HIT studio, strength training, anything in the boutique fitness and wellness, pelvic health practice, and are a female owner and operator or interested in learning more about how you can work with Felicia and myself, you can visit my website, www.kristagurka.com. And we have our community is always open for enrollment. You can open at any time. And then our other two programs, Elevate to Exit and Accelerator, will be opening enrollment again in June. We do discovery calls. You can always book a free call to chat with one of us about your individual solution and how we might be able to help you. And until next time, my friends, I look forward to working with you. Bye for now.
Bye.